Hello, it's me again, Keith Seymour with Real Talk. Hope y'all are doing well, and yes, you can probably guess what I'm speaking. My topic is going to be today. You get, you guessed it, Donald Trump. Now, I'm not going to get into the political Republican versus Democrat part of this. That's not why I'm here. I'm not going to get into whether he was framed, whether these charges should have been bought, whether this was a kangaroo court that was set up to convict him from the beginning. We have an entire judicial and appeals process in this country that will review those questions. And I'm not going to get into conspiracy theories, because anybody knows me that knows that for the most part I believe conspiracy theories are basically for the small-minded, and either that or people with overactive imaginations who have nothing better to do with their time than to come up with a lot of garbage. My topic today is the double standard that exists in this country. Now, I'm an avid reader and an avid history buff. I have looked through my little mini constitution that I keep in my desk, and also the other one in my coffee table. And I've also looked through my, American documents, historical American documents books. Gone online, Googled, read magazine articles, and it appears that there's nothing in our Constitution, and to my knowledge, I'm not a lawyer, although to my knowledge, there's nothing that prevents a convicted felon from running for president or vice president. There's nothing that will prevent a convicted felon from running for the most powerful office, not only in this country, but in the entire world. My question is why? Why does this double standard exist? And it is a double standard. Because you have to have a background check just to be a delivery pizza person, because you're handling cash. If you get stopped for a traffic violation and your mugshot is taken, and I speak from experience, and even though the charges are dismissed and the prosecutor says this guy shouldn't have been arrested in the first place, you still have to go through a lot of red tape to get a job at a McDonald's, a Chick-fil-A, and in my case, even as a substitute teacher. I applied for a summer job with Lyft recently, and and I have no points on my license, of accidents I had 3 years ago, they won't accept me. So, taking all that into account, taking into account that all of the red tape that us regular people have got to go through with background checks and fingerprinting and all that other garbage, why don't we have a law that states if you are convicted of a felony, you are not eligible to run for president? Now, this isn't even just Trump and the Republicans here. Like I said, I'm not going to get into the politically partisan issue of this. A lot of people have done that already, and a lot of people are going to continue to do so. In the 1960s, Senator Edward Kennedy was convicted of manslaughter for driving his mistress/secretary into Chappaquiddick Lake and leaving her there and trying to cover it up. Yet he was allowed to run for the presidency in the 1980s. I won't even get into the Clinton suborning perjury and Hillary Clinton, because that happened when they were in office. Why don't we have a law that says if you're convicted of a felony, you cannot run for president or vice president of the United States? These people hold our future and our lives literally in their hands. They hold the nuclear codes. They're the people that decide whether we get involved in a war or we stay out. They are a result for our foreign policy. And I'm not even going to get into what British television media and our allies media are saying that totally make us the laughing stock. On one hand, we have a president who's a total idiot and has destroyed our economy in the eyes of many, and on the other hand, we have a crook, a convicted criminal. So, why? Why do we have this double standard? We had Nixon in the 70s, and then we had Edward Kennedy running in the 80s. There has to be some sort of law that says you can't, I don't care what political party you belong to, there has to be a law that says you cannot run for president. As a matter of fact, a constitutional amendment. But we all know that's not going to happen. Because of the greed and the, nobody's going to create a constitutional amendment that's going to hurt their chances of holding the most powerful, or their party holding the most powerful position in the world. No, it's not going to happen. The heck with the rest of us that have to go through all this. So, The mainstream media, and as I said when I started these YouTube videos, one of my reasons for doing this is because I believe there are issues that the mainstream media is not addressing. This happens to be one of them. And if you look at the political commentators on the Sunday shows, you'll see why. There needs to be a law, or even better, a constitutional amendment that says, I'm sorry, if you can't run for president, you can't run for president or vice president if you've been convicted of a felony. Now, our forefathers didn't put that in the Constitution because they didn't foresee this sort of thing would happen. They were honest enough or naive enough, however you want to put it, to say, hey, you know what, we got a democracy, we got a republic here. We don't need to put that. Maybe they didn't envision that. They did envision people with titles running, because it says that no citizen who accepted a title, honorarium, or present from a king or prince, etc., may hold the office of president. So I'm sorry, Meghan Markle, but that's as long as you're the Duchess of Sussex, you can't do it. But that's another issue for another time. I simply want to know why the politicians in this country, and more importantly, why we, the voters in this country, have allowed this farce of a double standard to go on this long. If the guy that drives your Uber, your Lyft, your ride share, or delivers your pizza, or hands you your milkshake at McDonald's has to go through a background check to get that job, if every temp agency you walk into says, hey, you don't mind if we do a background check on you, do you? Then why don't we require the same thing for people running for president and vice president? The fact that my president is honest is more important to me than the fact that he's 35 years of age. Because quite frankly, I would rather have an honest 34-year-old than a 70-something-year-old who's been convicted of a crime. Or a 50-year-old who's been convicted of a crime. Simply because that is the standard that private companies are requiring people who apply to them to uphold, and it's legal. Now, if I sound angry, yeah, I'm angry. I'm as mad as hell. Not only at my politicians, but at my fellow voters, and yes, at myself. I plan to talk to my U.S. Senator and my congressman about this. Now, U.S. congressmen and U.S. senators, that's a states' right thing. Whatever the states, if some state wants a criminal representing them in Congress, then that's on them. But we'll talk about president and vice president here. So, all political issues aside, and yes, I admit I'm not a lawyer. I'd like to hear from lawyers on this topic. We need a law that eliminates this type of double standard. Felons should not be allowed to run for president. Or vice president. I don't care what your political affiliation is. That should be the standard. Remember, our country is based upon the fact that no one is above the law. Isn't it time that we started proving it by having this sort of law? Or even better, a constitutional amendment in place. Thank you. This is Keith Seymour with Real Talk.